Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So this whole Star Wars is for everyone movement, I have to say I've had a little bit of a problem with it. And we're talking about this on Martin Luther King Day, Civil Rights Day here in the US, because this is a Star Wars podcast, so let's talk about something in Star Wars that could potentially relate. So the reason why I've had a little trouble with this idea is that just semantically, grammatically, it's felt very much to me like the statement all lives matter, which back in 2020, when the Black Lives Matter movement really came forth in the wake of George Floyd, how there was a certain segment of the population that would not say Black Lives Matter, they would say all lives matter. And the rationale for it seemed to be that they thought that they were covering themselves by saying, well, of course we're saying Black Lives Matter because we're saying all lives matter. But in fact, it was a certain segment of the population that is, white supremacists. Let's just say what it is. And that doesn't think that Black Lives Matter, or that somehow saying Black Lives Matter is a way of then saying that white lives don't matter, which is, of course, ridiculous on its face. So in my head, I've been walking around hearing Star Wars is for everyone and thinking to myself, it's not really for the people who insist that Rey is a Mary Sue, or who were attacking John Boyega because they didn't think there could be a black stormtrooper, or who chased Kelly Marie Tran off of social media with their abuse, or who were sending abusive messages to Moses Ingram, for example. Like, Star Wars, in my mind, is not for the kind of people that would do those things. And the thing that finally turned me around about this is just thinking of it in another way, like kind of turning it around, basically. Star Wars is, in fact, for everyone. It is designed to be for everyone. It is designed to be welcoming and inclusive and hopeful and about found family. And really the issue is that a certain segment of the population has opted out of the message of Star Wars. You see, the people at Lucasfilm who make Star Wars have decided that they want it to be for everyone. And this goes all the way back to George Lucas in the early 70s as he was developing this whole idea. Everyone wants Star Wars to be for everyone. It's just that there are some folks who do not like the direction that Star Wars has gone in and have decided that Star Wars is not for them. I think we've seen it most readily with the sequel trilogy and also with Solo: A Star Wars Story. Somehow the reactions to Rogue One were not really the same in that regard. Like, it didn't catch the kind of flack that those other four movies did. But we were already kind of seeing this stuff with the prequel trilogy as well, and back in the day. Famously, George Lucas has talked about how he was kind of chased away from Star Wars in his own right, because who would want to make movies when they're subjected to the kind of criticism that they're subjected to, like the prequel criticism. And yes, some of it is in fact valid, but for people who would go far as to say that their childhoods were ruined because of the way the prequel trilogy was done, I mean, come on, really? The thing about Star Wars and saying Star Wars is for everyone would also be inclusive of the idea that you can like what you like and you can not like what you want to not like, but it doesn't have to have any effect on anyone else. Your version of what Star Wars is can be personal to you, and that's perfectly fine, but it doesn't mean that it's not something that should be available to anyone else, and that your version of Star Wars is the be-all end-all and anything else is a violation of what it is. I myself was not a fan of the prequels when they came out, or at least not The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Revenge of the Sith I liked, and over the years, I have grown to appreciate The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and I'll be talking about The Phantom Menace over the course of the year and about things that I've grown to appreciate. But at the time, when I was not all that knocked out about it, I wasn't thinking, oh, my childhood is ruined, or, I can't ever look at anything Star Wars related again because the taste of The Phantom Menace in my mouth is so bad. Like, it seems silly and ridiculous to take things to that kind of extreme. Though I will say, when I started this podcast, that I believed Star Wars to be basically a public trust, that it was something that we as fans had so much of an investment in by this point. We were 30 plus years on at the time, that what we thought about it as fans mattered. And I still do think that to a degree, but there's, I think, almost a level of entitlement that I thought I had in those early days that has utterly gone away over the course of my time being immersed in Star Wars over these 9.5 years. My attitude about life in general and Star Wars in specific really is kind of a love and let love situation, you know? Love what you want to love, let other people love what they want to love, and be happy for the people who love the things that they love, that they have them, even if they weren't your thing. And if that's the kind of sentiment that you can get on board with, then Star Wars really is or can be for anyone and everyone. And it's just a matter of whether you decide to opt into it. So that's what I've been thinking about on Martin Luther King Day, Civil Rights Day, as it relates to Star Wars. And that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. If you enjoy the show, I hope you'll consider sharing it with other Star Wars fans and friends that you know in real life or on social media. I hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. And I hope you'll consider subscribing or following on your favorite app, wherever you like to catch the show, however they like to call it. And it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the show, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyrighted by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.